I just kicked off the recording. Okay, so I think we should jump in. What I'm thinking about is that a lot of times people introduce themselves. Yeah, does anybody here want to introduce themselves? Everyone's kind of new. I'll just open it for a second.
I think most of us know each other. I don't know if we know Steve, though. Steve Lasker.
Hello. I think I've met most of it. Actually, Tracy, you and I met a while ago when we were talking about I might have been bin search or how we were storing stuff as artifacts for the projects you were working on in Deploy Hub. So I've been kind of kicking this off for a while with the OCI artifacts and the need to be able to search the content. Can we store all kinds of content in the registry? Because basically registries are the only well-funded package managers out there. So how can we not continue to build new unfunded package managers? But we definitely need to fill some gaps, such as search and other things, to really take advantage of all of the capabilities in registries. So that's been my kind of big push. Oh, and I guess Josh is kind of highlighting a bunch of the links for the stuff I've been trying to get, going for a while here. So this is exciting to see.
Yeah,
Cool.
Steve, you're an inspiration for the work, I think.
There's a lot of great people working on it. So happy to spawn ideas.
Okay. So yeah, let's just jump in, I guess. It's kind of a working meeting instead of the typical project meeting, which we should maybe set up at the end. So let's I think the main goal today is to go over the charter, talk about raise any issues. Some of the folks here weren't here last time that you want to raise, maybe talk about a couple of the last bits. I'm kind of hoping that we can reach consensus today that it's ready for PR, because I think that's the next step, is to make a PR into the tag app delivery repo. That doesn't mean it's fully accepted. Obviously, there'll still be room for some edits there. I also wanted to ask around to kind of get an idea of who would chair this group and make sure it's not just me. I mean, I'm willing to help and I will certainly facilitate as much as I can, but I'd love for, the primary lead maybe to come from someone that's really deep in the domain. And then I put down, Alex, maybe you want to talk about the artifact search you shared. I put down here what I kind of think is the first step once the charter is approved, like start gathering some specs. So maybe we'll talk about that. I guess, yeah, if anyone wants to add anything, write it in there or you speak up now. I'll pause for a second. Okay, so let's jump over here to the charter. Yeah, so take a look, I guess, at the purpose. I don't think we need to go through that now together. What I was kind of thinking, and also the alignment, I think that's pretty straightforward. Oh, I guess there is one question I wanted to ask the group. I tried to modify this after the last meeting. We kind of said, let's take out any mention about OCI itself, but I was thinking it might be helpful to still include a sentence like this so that when people, find this group and they say, what about OCI? At least we've already answered that. So I know there were some concerns, so I wanted to.
I mean, the OCI has an extensibility API, and I think that's kind of the point. Once the extensibility API is in there, does that mean that everything has to be an OCI, or that is the enablement?
Yeah, so that's kind of I think what you're saying is kind of what we said last time, which is here we're going to build prototypes, we're going to pull existing work together, we're going to but any work on an actual, we might even develop an extension, but any changes to the spec, like I think who was in last time from Brandon Mitchell was saying it would be, if they're working like on a OCI 2.0, which is artifact oriented or something, then that would be OCI. It's not us.
I don't think that, I think that what's in there is perfect. I think we can do a lot of this without any modifications to the OCI spec. If not, no modifications, except for obviously adding a search extension. So I think it's
That's
good
not
to,
even a I guess that's an extension, so we wouldn't have to. modify.
Exactly. I think that's kind of the model is, and I think that's part of what we want to kind of do as a charter is see what can be done without having to make more changes to OCI. So this way, because look at different, my assumption is this will be a set of options that different registries will implement over time. There's no free card to this. So putting it in the spec almost, well, anyway, there's a whole versioning question, so I'm trying to avoid that, but it's a set of extensions, and yeah, if we need some changes to the underlying specs, obviously that goes back.
Cool. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to take us off of that thing, but I just.
And maybe we need to call that out, that we're one of the goals is to try to propose the solution without having to make spec changes. Try to go that route before getting into you know, you get what I mean.
Check out what I'm writing in
Yeah.
here, you know. Something like that.
Yeah,
'Cause this was kind
exactly.
of this language was kind of what we came up with last time. Contribute if they are like thinking about a more common data model or more extensive data model, we could contribute to it. But I think you're saying, Steve, try to avoid that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the only other thing from like the Ortelius deploy up standpoint is we are interested in storing the metadata, and it's kind of alluded to in here. Let me see where it was. But that's one of the things that not only artifacts, but also metadata that we need to query.
So let's dig in. I think the next thing, which this is where I think we should spend most of our time now, is do we have the problem statements right? These we put both of these two in last time. We kind of felt we needed the problem statements towards Jen, I see you commented, I didn't get a chance to read it yet. There were some comments that, you know, we have activities, but we didn't really define what are the user scenarios that we're trying to enable. And so this is kind of the first two were what we came up with last time. The next two I put down. The third one seemed kind of an obvious one, so that's why I put it. The fourth one is a little different, and I can talk about it. But let me pause for a second and give folks a chance to kind of read those over.
Yeah, so the stuff I'm kind of referring to is kind of falls under the activities under number 3 in activities. Yeah, so and I don't think that's reflected in the problem statement.
Okay. I kind of see this statement. So I'm an application operator.
Okay, yep.
And I need to find out about, you know, everything that's being used. And then the answer to that is, well, we're going to create a common way to discover and search.
Got it. I see where you're going with it. That works.
So just a note on charters. I've written several now. I'm not going to write this one, but I'll give you some tips on it. Stay broad. Try to get your message in one really solid sentence. It's less than 11-second elevator pitch. It's like a 3-second elevator pitch. These problem statements are really good. I will almost call them use cases or requirements. But I think when you write a charter, you have to stay as broad as possible. Let me see if I can.
I agree, Tracy. I do the same thing for my like CFP proposals.
Yeah.
Especially the ones that are like 6 months out. Like I have no idea where the industry is going to be in 6 months. So I like to keep it as high level as possible. That gives us enough flexibility to pivot and flex our, flex either way, but still goes into our overall goals.
Let me see if I can find a charter that I did recently.
Steve, to your question here, application what I meant here is a person.
As a consumer or something. Yeah, I felt like it was just a word and it's just, it gets a little overloaded. And in fact, I realized search was an example, not the only.
Yeah. What we mean by this, the ops person in the DevOps, which could be the dev person too. I'm not saying anything about that. But when I'm wearing my operator hat and I'm running my application, I need to know, oh, I'm running this container. I need to check into what it actually is doing. So who is that person? Application operator, you're saying it's not a clear.
I would just change that to consumer, like you said, as a consumer, I need to discover, and like Tracy said, it gives it pretty broad range.
Is that what you were going for? Okay.
Let me show you I'm going to share a.
Is everyone okay with that? I mean,
Yeah, because I think there's two personas, right? There's the registry operators, and then there's three, and we should probably define personas. There's registry operators that will add capabilities to serve this broader use case, and then there's consumers, and then there's the various application types that need to know how do they implement the features to serve their consumers based on the existing registries.
we say artifact consumer, is that clearer? There's no persona. I guess that's what you're kind of saying is,
Yeah, I mean,
should we have
I
that?
want to let Tracy get back to her point, but yeah, it's probably just someplace we define personas.
And that's another one that's really hard to nail down. So I'm happy to see you guys are trying to do it now. But I don't think it has to go in your charter. And I've never seen personas in a charter. That's something I keep kind of poking at the OpenSSF, that we need to have clear personas. But I just put in the chat the OpenSS subcommittee charter. We kept it really, really broad there. Let me see if I can find one that I did for a technical committee.
And that charter was basically just a couple paragraphs long.
That's it. What you see is what you get. Yeah.
So are you all saying we shouldn't even have problem statements?
You don't need it in your charter. These almost, I feel like, become some use cases that we can work off of, but you don't necessarily need to have. We need to have a higher level problem statement, and that needs to be could be part of our charter, but it doesn't necessarily need to be. We don't
Okay.
need. I think somewhere in the purpose is probably going to be your purpose is a more accurate charter, and it really only has to be that big. If we go to Git, let's look at some of the other.
I
What would
think
be
this would be the summary of the first section. Is the last?
Exactly, yes.
So is that are we kind of suggesting this is enough and this all is kind of an appendix?
Yes, it is. But the charter statement should be really, really quite concise. I'm trying to think of let me see.
And the other stuff could almost be the starting point of the README for the repo.
And let me see what we did for CD events. Just as see.
Well, you have to go back on the CD events one because that was originally a working group, then it got changed to a project.
Yeah, I know. It's just, I don't think we changed
You didn't change the charter at that point.
I don't think we did too much. I'm just trying to find it. I've got so much stuff up here. I don't want to look at your charter. I just want to look at CD Foundation. CD events should be in here.
Hey Josh, does Tag App Delivery have any guidance on the charter or?
I did look at the charters for,
I don't think there is any.
I-
Not guidance.
yeah, but I think we did have here the problems. I think that's why yeah, look, that started with the problem statement. Maybe,
So there's the one that they did for, this has been updated. It's CDF event SIG. But you'll see what their charter, what their charter looks like.
intro.
The group is looking at how events can help to create a CI/CD system with a decoupled architecture. Easy to scale and makes it resilient to failures.
Even the SIG for interoperability.
See what another, everybody kind of does them differently, but
Yeah, this is kind of the activities, some of them.
it's, if you keep it high level, you know, changing a direction doesn't require you to change your charter.
Makes sense.
And I do believe that some of that stuff you have in the top is perfect for including in the charter.
Yeah, so that's, I'm kind of like, do we have kind of consensus
Yes,
on that? Should we maybe
that-
focus on this statement?
I think that your last paragraph there that starts with to reduce through your bullet points are really good. That's a really good charter statement.
Yeah, I just turned that into a bigger thing based on your feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess Jen in particular, what's your thought? Because I know you had brought this up, or Avi Deitcher, and you had talked about this here, but then yeah, I guess Aaron and Andy both said what Tracy's saying, which is let's hold off on these for later.
Yeah, I think the problem statements really help. My one comment about the third bullet, I actually had missed the second one, which I think is encapsulating what I was getting at. Like the third one is, my understanding is the third one is like how we get the data, like how do we discover SBOM information with attributes. And then I was also concerned about getting complete lists, component lists at runtime, but I see that I think the second one is capturing that. So my comment, I could probably close it. But yeah, I don't have so much experience with charters, so I don't have an opinion on whether the problem statement should stay or not.
I think we want it, whether it goes in this document is the question I think that Tracy's bringing up.
Is fine to put it in the document, but I would have charter and then a short paragraph of what that charter is, kind of what he's just outlined. And then you can have whatever supporting kind of backup information. You can say problem statements, you know, or potential use cases, or however you want to structure it. Nobody cares. But the charter itself, that initial charter paragraph, we need to be able to hold ourselves to, so it should be kind of broad.
Yeah, when I just mentioned we want to keep it, I don't know if we want to keep it as part of the charter, to your point. I was just like, there's good content there. I'm not sure where it goes, was kind of the message.
Well, it's going to go in our repo somewhere, and it'll go, we'll probably have a README, so it could go there in the README, and we can have a charter doc as well that's part of the repo.
And if you look at the CD events one, the way it was laid out was it had the charter and then it had a yeah, go up a little bit. The quick links part.
Oh yeah, nice.
So, and then each one of those, I don't know if they're just bookmarks or if they're separate files.
Yeah,
So that goes into that one. So I think that may be the easy way to kind of lay out, follow this format, and then you have your quick links to where people can dive in where they want to get more
And you can literally,
into the weeds.
and you can literally copy that README and bring it over and just put your information in it. It's the easiest way to do it, because some of it on the bottom is going to have Linux Foundation requirements, I think. There's going to be some stuff in there.
Yeah, like code of conduct.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you saying for the repo, if we make a repo for this?
We should have a repo.
The way we'll probably do here is we'll just do the same pattern that was for the platforms, and we'll GitOps, which was create a folder in tag app delivery with the same stuff.
Basically the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to like jump the gun here, but it seems like we have at least a couple templates that we can use for the initial PR, and like we have a good like direction of like the level of information we want in the charter. Can we kind of go into, as long as we have consensus around the outstanding comments within this document, can we go into, I don't know if this was in the agenda, but like elect somebody to PR this or just initiate this action. I think a lot of this we can just kind of do asynchronously over, I don't know if there's an appetite for that, or if we have other things we want to talk about that are specific to this document.
Well, I did. Well, I think that last bit was kind of very valuable, is what I'm kind of thinking. Like what needs to go into like problem statements. Like I do kind of want to know. Are you also thinking activities? Like speaking of being very prescriptive and perhaps limiting us. Is this okay? Is everyone in agreement on all this?
Well, you in like the activities, where you have the working group will carry out the following activities, for example, but not limited to. You add the not limited to phrasing in there.
Yeah.
And that just gives you that out.
Of the people who have experience creating these types of groups or charters, is there anything that we need to be specifically sensitive to make sure that this working group is set up for success, so that we don't end up wayward, or I don't know. I think there's people with experience of working groups that have gone astray maybe.
Yeah, tagged app delivery. In fact, some of the other leads in tag app delivery, like that's one of the emphases with a working group, is that it should be some concrete work item, and that we're working towards that and coming out with something. It's a little more concrete than say a tag or oversight committee. That's kind of one of the reasons why I was looking to be pretty concrete here.
And the goals section is almost it's pretty close to being like a deliverable section. That's what it kind of feels like.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So like we'll probably see, well, that's a goal. Here's the work product, I guess, was where they wanted to finish this, and that was when they closed the GitOps WG. The platforms one, let's see if it says. Expected outcome.
Remember, these charters have evolved over time. They weren't written like this initially. They have been updated.
Yeah. Okay.
But you're close with what you have. I think you're really close. We just need to make sure that it's, we have a really tight opening intro charter statement that gives us some wiggle room.
So what I would throw out there is to pick a template to follow, and then have somebody just take this document, transpose it into the template that we're going to copy, and then create the PR. So I think we
Yes.
just really need to pick which template we want to follow.
I think it's up to us. I mean, I was even thinking of just doing it as is, like this, basically everything above the line is where I'm at kind of now.
That works.
I have another question about this. Do we need to define where we're going to do the work in this, or is that yet to be determined?
I don't think we have to define it here.
Okay.
Like if you need a repo or something.
I think that is something that is, very open for its implementation details at a certain point.
So now I think, Alex, we should get to what you were saying, which is who wants to do this? Does somebody want to own creating the PR and putting it in here?
What do you mean by own? Copying the text in?
Yeah, and running the thread, I guess. Dealing with the comments and we also need to open an issue in talk. So let's see, the most recent one was the query one. Yeah. Maybe it was a PR.
If somebody, if nobody here wants to do that, I can do it. But can somebody else open the issue? You said that it's going to be a separate issue.
So there's an issue actually opened that Scott opened. Let's see if
I think so.
Here it is. Here's the initial issue.
Okay, so we're just going to use this one.
We just
Yeah.
say closes, 368 or something.
Yeah, I would say that is appropriate.
Should this be from a known personality in tag app delivery? Should this be from somebody?
Oh, if you, Josh, don't want to do it because there's a lot of stuff going on, I can do it.
I mean, I'm okay. I think if it comes to us, Robert, then I'm okay doing it. I was just wondering, I mean, I'm kind of wondering also who wants to lead the group. I put that on here. So maybe if there are folks who are eyeing leading this.
Keyword help wanted.
Yes. And I would just say it, I'd be like, I love working on this stuff, but I just don't want to be a bottleneck. I would love for.
I think we at least need one set of fresh eyes, like at least as a co-chair.
I would rather be the co-chair.
I would definitely recommend a co-chair, just because two reasons. One, it gives a somewhat unopinionated viewpoint, but also gives backups for PTO, etc.
Yeah, it's most of us that are active in different kind of working groups and stuff like that in Tag App to do right now. It just happens to we just get set to do all these things, so we need more people in. I think I'm fine being co-chairs of the artifacts working group, but I would like to see someone new also coming in that might not be so I guess overloaded with stuff, whatever you want to say.
I think that's the common theme, is most of the folks that could do it are overcommitted. So I'm happy to co-chair as well. I'm concerned about the amount of time between this and all the other things.
Yeah, I started looking, like, I feel like next steps could be we don't even have a place right now to gather existing specs. I started sharing some in there, but if somebody wants to, is it a repo? Is it the folder that we'll have in Tag App Delivery? Are we going to gather schemas? Are we going to gather just pointers? we get the people that are writing them, participating. That's actually, it's not just herding cats. You got to understand the technical parts. But there's a lot of toil, I guess. The herding cats part.
Yeah, but if someone is herding cats and have the capability or capacity to herd some cats, if there are more technical co-chairs and in general just working group members, that would kind of just solve itself, I think, and more or less. But do we need this before putting out the charter? Do we like totally land it, or could we have like a draft charter thing or requests to ask for participants, or because the platforms working group kind of we had the chairs before, I think.
Did we? I
Actually, I don't think we did. When I think about it.
Yeah, and so I was more bringing it up like, but we should have an idea that we're gonna have a lead.
I just wanted to say, like, this call right here has like all of my heroes on it. Like, I think Steve Lasker was the first person that like I showed UOR to before it was UOR. I think Sage was in that conversation too. Andy Block, like, I mean, Ram Kumar owns like Zot, like that's an incredible registry. Like, there's so many people here who I think are way more qualified for something like this than I ever would be. But I'm very concerned about like the viability and the future of this working group, because like this is something that I think could be very meaningful to the industry. So if the consensus is that people just are just strapped for time, I would be willing to do that, but I think there's more qualified people is what I'm saying. So I would nominate them over myself.
I don't think you need to think about like qualification when it comes to technical and experience standpoint. Like running a working group is more of a just keeping the lights on, making sure that everyone's participating and helping facilitate stuff more than being like technical or hands-on. I think if you are interested in doing this, then you will get a lot of backup from all of Tag App Delivery.
Alex, what you just mentioned a minute ago, you just mentioned all the players at play. Guess what? That is ideal for somebody who can lead. So I don't disqualify yourself. You know the people, you know who to reach out to. That's part of herding cats. And if you have the bandwidth, go for it.
Well, I'm not the nicest person at times, but if everybody's okay with that, then I would do it.
Sometimes to make progress and innovate, you got to be that bad guy.
We love you, Alex.
Exactly.
Alex, this will be a good learning experience for you. I think you're the perfect person for it. Everybody should have to go through this process.
I think we just nominated Alex.
Whether he liked it or not.
You've been voluntold, Alex. Congratulations.
I will probably hate all of you for this.
You will.
We love you too.
We will back you up.
Congratulations, you got the job. There's no pay.
Right. I put down nominate because I wanted to have a pretty good idea, and I think now we do. Thank you, Alex. I was also hoping you would say that. We do have to get it approved probably by the talk or something, but that should be okay. So Alex, I'm wondering, maybe you submit the PR and I can open the issue in the talk.
Yeah, let's do it.
And like it was said earlier, I think we should focus on getting the charter through and then follow along with the nominations and all the logistics part.
Okay, let me write that down. So after charter is approved, officially nominate and choose leads.
Yeah. Because that'll give us a little bit of a gap to figure out if we want to do co-chairs that whole thing. We went through on the CD Foundation, went through this whole thing with, should it be a co-chairs or should be a chair and vice chair and all the ins and outs. So that's a whole nother can of worms just right there. So that's why I think we should just get the charter in place, approved, and then take it from there. That way it gives Alex some time to back out.
Or get more comfortable.
Yeah, either way.
Okay, so anything else on the charter? Do we feel like we're good to go? Oh, this one we might want to take out.
The only other thing that I would add, looking at some of the other charters, is just the sections like when are the meetings, those links, kind of put the placeholders in place.
You think so? I was kind of thinking that's logistical and we'll hammer that out, in the README.
That's fine too.
I think that makes sense. When this gets approved and stuff starts rolling, everyone's busy and all days are taken when it comes to meetings. So we need to kind of like ask people, be on a Friday. Yeah, let's do that at this time, which is 7 to 8 my time in the evening. But
Right, exactly.
it's fine. I'll play Diablo 4 later.
At least it's not dark there now, right? It's the summertime.
Well, it gets dark a little bit, but it's still light out now. If I was home, it would be sunny all night. But
Where are you based out of, Robert?
I live in Oslo. That's why I say that. But I'm from Tromsø, which is above the Arctic Circle. So, full on sun during the entire night during summer.
I'm in Zurich right now. The sun is out quite a bit right now.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
Yeah, so there was one more. I guess I'll just share this thought because you probably hear it from me anyway, so I should just be explicit about it. One of my thoughts for a long time has been, if we've defined the schemas for all of these different artifact types, then in the same way that like OCI runtime knows how to read an image spec and turn it into a running container, Kubernetes controllers could eventually be able to read other kinds of OCI specs, like a Helm chart spec or whatever kinds of spec, and deploy it, take out the image, take out configuration files. And so I had put that as possibly one of the problem statements. I've actually seen this myself as a platform operator. When I go to install a new capability, there's like 20 different ways to do it with Helm charts and CLI tools and applying kubectl manifests from the internet, operator lifecycle manager from Red Hat. So I kind of have, it's not the first goal of this group. I know our first goal is discovery and artifact search, but I just wanted to let you all know I was thinking about that and see what your thoughts are on that.
And this kind of gets into starts to delve into the details, but it's a good thing we obviously need to get to. And I think this is the interesting spot to go where to balance using the existing schemas, knowing the generic things like annotations that are already on there and media types and so forth, to content specific indexing, to a more generic thing, which Alex and team have been, and Jen and team have been working on with the I forget how to, I still want to call it UOR framework, but amorphous. Enforce. Thank you. Okay, that Enforce is doing. So I think that's the interesting place to explore as we get into. But I think identifying what we need, like what are the scenarios that we want to cover, might help inform that direction. Does that make sense, Josh?
Yeah, I actually kind of think what I'm bringing up is a little bit different than the discovery stuff, although it's related. Like if I could pull dynamic schemas and unbundle, yeah, that's kind of what I want to bring up with the group. Should I not even mention it here? Is it a problem? You know, I do hope some of the work we do here might inform that, and maybe we pick it up eventually, but doesn't even need to go in the charter.
I think if you make the, like Tracy said, the charter generic and kind of little open-ended, that it'll be covered. We can
Kind of
add that on later.
Jennifer just put it into chat here, but we did cover this in one of our early prototypes where she wrote container D extension that essentially ran a container, right? But from artifacts. So I mean, that's something that we did have in mind. So I think but I think what Steve said also is that it might also be encompassed in the other section that talked about prototypes.
Cool. I'm happy to know you've thought about that a little. Acorn does something, that's the thing from Darren Shepard, who was Susie and Rancher, does something like this too. It packages containers and other things and tries to unbundle them with its own controller.
I mean, maybe it's just, and I thought we were doing this at one point, is just gathering a set of use cases or scenarios. And then we can find the patterns that become the sub-working groups. Because they'll all inform each other. But it's, I go back to the thing where there's lots of good designs, but which problem are we trying to solve? So it's really easy to want to jump into designs.
Got it. So you're saying that's the first thing, that the first meeting, maybe we go over these problem statements or something and decide.
And there's probably some overlapping of a couple of them that, you know, there's a dependency tree that in order to achieve this, we need this other thing. And then you have these other, you know, the sub-working group, because basically work group artifacts is I believe we're saying is a collection of a couple of things that we want to do. So how can we do kind of the post-it note whiteboard exercise where we put a bunch of scenarios up, get good understanding what those are, and then if we agree that's the things we want to go solve, then how do we group those and create subgroups to focus on them? And then once we've defined what we really need, then we can start having the fun part of mocking up designs for what we want to solve.
Okay, thank you all for, yeah, then that's good. I took that out and I think that's a good answer. So. Anything else on the charter before we close that? Okay. So two more. Alex, do you want to discuss this? I know you were.
I can go over, I mean, really briefly. So I wrote this up just from some of the prototypes that we made with Emporis, some lessons learned from those, additional thought experiments. This doc is not supposed to be prescriptive in any way. It's just to get a conversation going around different ways that different ways that we can get extensibility in a system like this, different ways that we can get decentralization, distribution, kind of hard problems. So I didn't want there to be any confusion that this is some type of a prescription or it's just based on some of my observations over the past year and a half or something. And I know there's some holes in the logic that I have there. So like I'm not married to it, but I just want to just kind of put it up there to start the conversation. Things that were on my mind when I was writing this was like having decentralized distributed references to artifacts. So like across namespaces, and then you could consider registries as namespaces as well. So, and then also extensibility in the way that we refer to artifacts, and then extensibility in the way that we refer to remote resources. So, Andrew and I wrote a blog on the Red Hat Emerging Technologies site. It's kind of a imprecise way of describing a system that would function like this. I think we have better ways of describing it now, but I could link to that also to give people an idea of where we're coming from with this. But I think that's about as much as I'd want to say about it right now. I just love feedback. I love engagement there. That would be excellent.
Yeah, it's great to know what you're thinking. Like this is making me think I should look a little more into RDF triples and things so I can be familiar. So I appreciate it.
It would really be like what I have here is like, if you look at the in toto spec, like it's pretty much an extension of that, where I think they're missing, like in RDF terms, they're missing like the object element within that data model. It's implicitly the statement itself. But yeah, it would be very similar to that. So we'd essentially be indexing, I think, what people would be familiar with as like in toto attestations at that point.
Okay, so I guess the call to action there is check it out, you know, and think about it. Sajay, what's up? You don't have to raise
I
your hand.
got a question for Alex. I actually went through the document. Can we get, like, do you have more details on remote references? Because that's super exciting. Because if you can actually call stuff from different places, or at least if your signature is stored somewhere else, or if your SBOM is stored somewhere else, if you can reference through it, that would like help like a distributed object model also, right?
Yeah, I will continue building out the content in here and try to convey that. That's not something that we put in the original Emporis stuff. So I will have to put that on paper. So yeah, I do have some stuff to put in there though.
And one of the things that we've been thinking about from the Ortelius deploy up side is dealing with a federated model of, you know, if you have multiple registries, you know, some people like to use Google, some people want to use Red Hat, you know, and being able to federate that together is going to be something that we'll need down the road. We don't know how to solve it yet, but we know that it's going to be needed.
I think this is one of the things Josh had brought up with Artifact Hub, right? Because that's actually solely what Artifact Hub is. It's a big indexing service across multiple registries,
Exactly.
package managers. So that's an interesting scenario to say. And we have the same conversation in, you know, with Docker Hub, where, you know, Docker Hub is, in fact, you can browse stuff in Docker Hub that is not stored in Docker Hub. So it's definitely an interesting scenario.
Okay, we're pretty close to time, so I just looked up. I did put down here something. Yeah, we don't need to talk about that. It's pretty practical once we're going. So I'll just keep thinking about it on, you know, and bringing it up asynchronously.
Tracy, is there a place that, like, what do people think about where we store this stuff? I mean, there's lots of different choices. GitHub seems to be a good place, but it's, I know
So
there's
the thing about
lots
it
of
is, if you use GitHub, then all of the LFX tools can be applied to it. And that's kind of important.
Yeah,
So
this,
that's
so I guess
why-
if we want to, this is to start, you know, loosely gathering all of these schemas. So if we want to talk about, yeah, you could GitHub, try to find a repo there or something.
Is this a scenario where there's a separate organization type deal on GitHub, or a separate repo in the CNCF organization, or a et cetera, et cetera?
So to kind of make our lives easier, to be able to move faster, a repo kind of outside of some of the formal places makes things move along quicker. So like you can set it up for like one reviewer or no reviewers at the beginning, and then add on, you know, stuff as you go. That's the nice thing about having a totally separate repo, versus having a folder under the app delivery where you're kind of constrained to their rules, and that may slow us down. That's the experience I've had.
I kind of agree with that, and I think that having some sort of working group organization for this type of work would make it easier for us to get started quicker. And it's kind of the same that the Open GitOps project has. You know, we have our own organization, and you know, we have more flexibility when it comes to how to structure repositories, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If we're trying to get a like a github.com/CNCF/ you know, etc., it's gonna take a while, and it's gonna be hard to deal with if stuff happens in general.
And you could always, the reason why I take this kind of approach of start a separate repo, because you can always move the repo and merge repos and do that stuff down the road.
Yeah, just and this is part of why we were wanting to leverage the CNCF tag app delivery group, because I've seen there's a balance. There's a balance of being completely independent, of lots of freedom, but then certain companies won't allow their employees to contribute unless there's some, you know, legal vendor neutral kind of domain. So not too strict, not too loose, whatever this group feels like we can. Actually, I was kind of hoping the tag app delivery group would have a structure that we can just pop into. Is that the case, or?
Not per se. We have a repo, but that is again under the CNCF and there's various ways that this has been solved in various projects and working groups. Yeah, Josh.
Like Podtato, I was gonna say like Podtato had started
Yes.
as a sub repo and then became an org even. So I think that we have the connections. I mean, I know where to go, but I think what we're gonna need is get the working group approved. And then it probably will be pretty easy for me to ask Amy and Chris can we have a repo? I mean, if they say, oh, we don't do that anymore, then we'll have a problem. But I don't know, maybe I'm being optimistic. I kind of think they will let us get one.
I just know, like, for having a different organization is you know, makes life a whole lot easier, and it can come under the CNCF you know, enterprise umbrella, etc. So it's not like it's gonna be, you know, we're going totally rogue. It's still gonna be under the CNCF banner in that sense, and for anything related to the working group under tag app delivery, that, you know, that gets put into the CNCF tag app delivery repository, and it will backtrack to whatever the kind of working area is. I think that works pretty well in most, if not all, cases.
Okay, I think this is good to chat about it. I think we'll have to decide after the Ouija, so we'll leave it at that for now, if that's okay with folks. Set up a recurring meeting. So I guess should we try to find a recurring time, and what would be, do folks have a recommendation for how to approach that? The doodle, we use a doodle, but that's kind of just for one meeting.
if you send out a doodle and say that this is for a recurring time and just have like a random week, we can go by which day would win at what time slot.
Yeah, that's why I've seen it done before too.
And I guess it's not every week, just to hope not to overload everyone with stuff more, I guess.
Yeah, we do bi-weekly pretty much on the other groups. I think that's a pretty good cadence.
Right. And what you could do is you could do a 2-week doodle. So if 1 week is bad for you and then you have your off week,
Yeah, I'll try to make it clear in the doodle. First week in doodle means first week of the month, second.
First doodle week. But if you just put it in any, sorry, Alex, I think you're muted. But if you just put it into whatever would be kind of the start week, and then whatever gets picked out of those 2 weeks would be kind of the thing that you do the recurrence from, or something. If that makes sense.
I'll go ahead and do that because I feel like we should have the next meeting scheduled even as we're getting the work group approved.
Yeah.
Okay. We got a lot in here in an hour, and we're 1 minute over. Anything else to bring up?
Great to see it moving forward.
Thank you all for your help. Yeah.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks all.
All right.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Have a good
everybody.
week.
See you soon.
Thank you, guys.